Welcome to the BMI Podcast, guys. Today we've got Michael Wilson from Wilson Designer Homes, and he's come in to just talk to the listeners and actually tell them a bit about himself, and then also with real estate.
Yeah, appreciate it. Cheers for having me here.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming.
Yeah, awesome.
So first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself. By the way, we've already just recorded this, and we just realised I fucked up and didn't press record. So I'm hoping he can
remember what I said.
Yeah, remember what you said, and actually it can flow.
Pretty sure I can remember my past. But so yeah, I grew up in Matamata. I'm not actually from Te Aotearoa, but you know, when you meet somebody and they're from a certain place, and you end up going there and, you know, learning something, getting a job, and all of a sudden you're out starting a business, buying some houses. Maybe not. You end up getting quite centered in the place that you live or you've moved to, and all of a sudden that place starts to become your home or starts to become your base because you've built a network, you know everybody in the town, you've got your connections, things start to become a little bit easier for you there. So yeah, I ended up moving from Matamata, which is where I grew up, to TA, and not saying that I won't move somewhere else one day, but it's a great place. It's a good place to live.
Yeah. And you were, so how long ago did you move from Te Aotearoa from Matamata?
Pretty much
as soon as you started building, or?
No, actually, so I started building when I'm 32 now. So I started building when I was 21, and we didn't move for about 2 years. So 9 years ago, I moved to TA. So we were driving from Matamata to TA every day, back and forth for almost 2 years, year and a half or so.
Is that just because you have a majority of your business there? Is that where there was an area of scope for yourself, or?
Not necessarily. It's just I got a job in Te Aotearoa for a guy named Zane. So I was living in Matamata, and we were driving back and forth every day. So I was living in one of my parents' farmhouses at the time. So rent was incredibly cheap.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was like, do you pay for gas? Do you pay for rent? But the rent would have cost a lot more if we moved over. And also it was good for the bank servicing side.
Because it always looks better, right?
Yeah, I had the intention that I was trying to save and look good on my bank statements so that I could start buying some property.
Yeah.
So we ended up getting the job in Te Aotearoa, started driving back and forth. We ended up buying some houses after my first year as an apprentice. So we saved up for that first year. Got to, I was saving about $350 a week. So a lot of my pay at the time, because I was only making about $550, $600 in hand a week.
Yeah, because what's this, like almost 12 years ago? Eight years ago.
Basically 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Yeah. So
and that's quite a lot for someone to save, especially back in those days. Because I remember, what's that, around 2010 is when I bought my first place.
Oh yeah.
And my first mortgage was only, $180.
Oh yeah, sweet.
You know,
nothing.
like, which is nothing, you know.
Well,
but back then that was a larger chunk of my, because I was on minimum wage as well, you know. Like,
correct. And it's going to be the exact same in 10 years' time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be the same thing. You'll go, oh, rents were only $600 a week back then, and now they're $1,200 a week.
Yeah, no, and it's sad. Like it is the path that we're heading towards, and I think a lot of people they're constantly complaining about it, and they're not, you know, like, and they're kind of going, oh well, this is getting harder, and this and that is getting harder, and I feel like a lot of people play that victim mindset.
You can complain about it all you want, but it's not going to change your situation.
Yeah,
you're the only one who has control. You're the only one who's going to come and drag you out of bed and make yourself go and achieve something for yourself. You know, you're the only one who can make yourself work and change your life circumstances. Yeah, not even your mum's going to do it for you.
No,
she's got her own shit.
And even then, like, some people's parents are probably going to get in their way as well. They're going to be like, well, why are you doing that? Or
they might have a victim mindset themselves.
Yeah.
And that, I find that commonly true for a lot of people, is they've grown up with this mentality around them, because you become a person of your environment. So if you've grown up around a lot of negativity and people complaining, not ultimately, but you are more inclined to become that person yourself until you actually expand out, meet other people, network, and realize that, hey, if I actually change myself, there's potential future for me. There's something that I can achieve.
Yeah, especially for money as well, right? Like, that's, like, you made a good point about how you've got people in your life that are talking negatively about things, and then especially when they're talking negatively about money. So I heard on a podcast the other day, and they were saying how, like, when they were kids, that their dad, you know, they used to point out to people and be like, hey, that dude's driving a Lamborghini. He goes, oh, he probably fucked over someone to get that or something like. But that's his mindset, that towards someone that has done successful things, and that's their approach to teaching their kids, when actually you should be going like, if you work hard, son, you can be exactly like that person. There's nothing separating you from him and you.
Correct,
You know?
that's right. Well, if you've got the guy saying that guy with the Lambo's obviously screwed some people over or whatever, that's him looking at his own mirror because he only knows what he knows. He's only able to look at the world through his view of what he's experienced in his own life. So if you've grown up in that position around negative people with a negative mindset, you're likely going to become that type of person until you get out and expand and meet new people that show you new avenues and give you new mindsets. So that's it's a tricky thing, and there's a lot of problems. I don't know if I'm going to go too wide on this, but there's a lot of problems, let's say, just in New Zealand as a whole. And I think the way to change that, to make the country better as a whole, is to really get it across to people. And you need to get inside of their minds and help them become better people themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way to really improve everyone as a whole and make the whole country level up and become better and create a better society for everybody that's more productive, where everybody does better. And that's one of the ways that we can delete some of the poverty and some of the terrible and negative things around us that we see day in, day out. And sometimes I feel like the country's going in a negative direction, but
yeah. Well, like we're out there, we're trying to make a change, right? Like you can bring people up. What does it say? You lift the shores up or something like that. You lift all boats up with the shore or something like that. Like it's not really.
Don't know if I've heard that one, but
So there's one something like if the tide lifts all boats up or something like that. So if you're going through, and then you're the one that's actually leading the way, but you're actually behind you is actually everyone else is picking up because you are trying to make a difference. You're trying to be the best version of yourself or whatnot.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to betterment for others as well. Like that's a huge one as well.
Yeah. It's funny. I've had some people say to me, like, sometimes you're all about yourself, but then in my mind, you've got to remember that you're a node in a network. So what you should always do is you should always look after number one. And people are like, well, that's selfish. You should look after other people first, which I disagree with because
I completely agree with that as well.
If you can't look after yourself and you're not in a better position, you're in no position to be able to help anybody else. So what you need to realize is you're a node in a network, call it 2 degrees of separation in New Zealand. So if you improve yourself, you can then help all of the people around you. And if you help all of the people around you to come up, they can help all of the people around them, and that can spread across the entire country.
Yeah.
So, look, you've always got to look after number one, because if you can't look after number one, you can't look after number two, and then they can't look after number three and number four and so on.
Yeah, like I always use the analogy, like you can't pour from an empty cup. How are you, the person who's supposed to be bringing everyone else up, trying to help others when you've got nothing in your cup? Like if you, like I had that quite a lot growing up. And this is even for the listeners out there that have probably got some people that are negative towards you or trying to say, all you do is care about yourself. I had my own mother tell me, like, hey, all you care about is yourself. And like, little does she know, I'm doing this to retire her. I just smiled and was like, okay, mum, you just got to, like, because the thing is as well, that's all she sees is me going off and working hard and not putting time aside for her and catching up with her versus I'm actually trying to, well, now I have created a life that I have been able to help my mother out and I am still doing that, and those are the things that go missed, but like it is a part of the journey. And I think a lot of people there's not always someone like that in your ear, but I think a lot of people will run into those and they sort of go, well, all you care about yourself. It's like, well, no, it's not.
Well, that's their particular lens. They're looking at a mirror. They're not looking for a window. But in your mind, you're making a sacrifice for other people. Yeah. Yeah. And I quite commonly see this because I talk to we have quite a few calls with people all the time. And I always notice this little thing when people are trying to achieve something, if you really dig deep into what they're trying to achieve, there's always something actually bigger for themselves. Like, sure, they're doing it for themselves because let's say they want to make money or they want to improve themselves. But whenever you really dive deep into it, there's something bigger. And I always hear these phrases. It's for my church. It's for my mum. It's for my friends. It's for, my family.
Ones, my loved ones,
so when you really dig deep, it's always bigger than them anyway, if that makes sense.
No, it 100% does. Like I completely agree. And a lot of people don't realize it. And unfortunately for the people that are going through the journey, my advice to you is to stay strong and actually believe in yourself, because sometimes it's all it's going to take is you has to believe in yourself for you to get to that finish line or to that wherever that destination is for you, because like you can be pulled away from that path, but like that's life sort of testing you, and you need to break through that wall just so that you can actually like, okay, I am doing it for them. They don't realize, and then that you can use that as a little trigger and be like, wait, you wait and see, and you'll see what the selfishness is going to do for you.
Well, first they hate on you, first they call you crazy, then they hate on you and try to bring you back down to their level, and before long they're coming to you and asking for advice on how they can do it for themselves.
Yeah. Now, well, that was a good little tangent.
We got offline there. So.
I feel like maybe there might be a couple more podcasts later if we can spit out some of that stuff. It can help people out there, that are going for this sort of stuff. But the building company.
Yep, the building company.
Yeah. Now, so you fully you're your own LBP.
Correct. I'm a licensed building practitioner.
Yep.
So registered building company. We're a certified builder. Yep, all the certificates and accolades and all that, the things we need.
Good on you, bro. And good on you for being very young and going and doing it yourself as well. For myself, I'm not the LBP. My father was my LBP, but he still didn't go and do what you've done. He's been building for 45 years now. But it takes a lot. So I've got a little question here. What were there any hesitations, or what were your, I guess, hurdles that you had to cross whenever you were, I guess, coming into that decision making to start that business yourself?
I guess if I could think about it, I kind of felt like I needed to always do the next thing, or try to not so much impress people, but prove to people that I was capable of always doing more. So there was a few things that I was perhaps involved in or doing when I was an adolescent or late teens, early adult, that perhaps some people would look negatively on. And from sort of letting some people down, I was like, I need to prove to everyone around me that I'm not that person, and I can actually go forward and achieve something and prove myself and prove to other people that I'm capable and able of, my old man used to always say to me that it's your job to leave this world in a better place than you found it. And that's something that's really stuck with me.
Yeah, no, well, it's almost like you're not, how would I say it? It's not your redemption, but it's almost like a path of redemption or something. Like you're like, hey, sorry. And maybe you even see that I can do better. I'm going to go do better. Is that what it was like? Or
yeah, a little bit. Like I got that. This makes me think of a phrase that I think of occasionally, and it's, if you can't respect what you say to yourself, then how can you expect other people to respect what you say? And because of, let's say, that phrase, I kind of feel like I need to prove to people that I am the kind of person who does what I say I do all the time, so that way people know that I respect what I say to myself, so that way I can expect other people to respect what I say too, to prove to them that I'm not a piece of shit.
Yeah.
going back to some of the reasons why, and some of the mindsets around it. But
cool. I'm not even kidding. I just said that saying today on the phone.
Yeah.
I was talking to my
great
mate.
Saying.
Yeah, and we were talking about, I just finished 75 hard.
Oh yeah,
and
awesome.
Then so I just finished that a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
And he asked me how it went, and he said, it's you gotta be true to your word. And I said, honestly, and then I said that saying, how was anyone gonna take me seriously if I don't take me seriously?
Exactly, 100%.
Yeah. So was there anyone that inspired you, I guess, in that building world, or did you come up around building? Was there someone that?
Not really. I mean, my old man's a dairy farmer, and my old lady was a teacher, school teacher. So I guess I was quite fortunate as a kid growing up around, I didn't think so when I was a kid, but I grew up around extremely hardworking people. I mean, people consider me working. People I don't know how you do what you do, and I just think about my parents, and I'm like, I don't even do anything close to what they do.
Bro, I'm the exact same, eh?
But so I guess that perhaps not inspired me, but it taught me the disciplines to be able to be somebody who, if you have to do something, you just follow through and get it done. I actually met a guy, or caught up with a guy the other day, and he's got focus tattooed on his arm, and it was follow one course until successful. And I was like, that's really cool. I was like, I've never heard that before. That's cool.
Good on him too, right there in his face, eh?
Yeah, so if you're working on something, just follow through, get it done, and then
that's actually a good one, eh? How old were you when you first bought your first property? Actually,
I was just about to turn 22, so I was 21. So that's sort of when I started realizing or reading books about real estate prior to turning 21.
Yeah.
And sort of through reading books, as it's like you're saying, if you grow up around a whole bunch of negative people that complain, that becomes your life, but you need to escape that and you need to read, consume, meet somebody who helps you to realize that through something that somebody else has done, it can be possible for you too. So I started reading a bunch of books around real estate, and that started to click that I was like, oh, if these people are doing it, then I'd be able to do it for myself.
Yeah.
So that led me to learning for about 5 or 6 months, read a lot. It led me to wanting to get into a trade or business job that would help me to buy real estate properties. Real estate. I actually wanted to buy rentals. So I got into building because I wanted to buy rentals.
Yeah.
And so I built for about a year, saved up over that year, continued learning, going to seminars and that sort of thing. There weren't really many podcasts back then.
Yeah.
And there were bugger all New Zealand books on it. So a lot of them were Americanized.
Yeah, and I find a lot of the people out there that are trying to learn it with the BRRRR strategy, it's like it's not quite as transferable. When I was in real estate, a lot of people were coming and asking me
very
about...
hard to do successfully here.
Yeah. It's still possible. Like
it is still possible.
It's very, very possible.
Very possible, yep. So I did that. I did my building apprenticeship for about a year, saved up over that year, and roughly on a year after starting my building apprenticeship, we bought our first rental property. Using the BRRRR strategy, essentially, learning a few things along the way. Obviously, I wasn't an expert at that time, and I'm not an expert yet. I'm still a student of life, although I imagine I know quite a bit about real estate.
Yes.
So we brought that first property, brought it for $250,000, put down a 20% deposit. At the time, the LVR rules were you could loan up to 80%, so LVRs of 80%. So I brought it with a 20% deposit, but I tried to buy it as close to that 80% of the market value or perceived market value at the time. So that way the 20% took us down to say 60% of value. It was more like 70, but we did some renovations, revalued it, and we were able to recycle that same deposit back up to $250,000 because the property was valued, from memory, it was about $335K, something like that. So we revalued it, and after 6 months we brought our second property, same thing again, brought it for 80% of value. Back then the banks would allow you to use GV, whereas now they just use the algorithms called logic, I value, E value, and then we did the same thing 6 months later and brought another property using that same strategy, but then we got tapped out at 3 properties because I didn't have the servicing equation.
Serviceability.
Right, I hadn't learned enough about that.
Yeah, and that's a tough one. Like, I think a lot, if we're being honest, in New Zealand, a lot of people are running into that problem, right?
That's where it's all gone now.
And it sounded like a bit of a blurt just out of your mouth. Like, what was the first, like, slow that down for the listener, how I started doing that, that gives some people some realistic timelines as well. Like, I think a lot of people, I see the problem when I see these clips online and whatnot, that it's just like, oh yeah, I just do this and then you do that and then you rinse that out.
There's
and
no
you do
context.
That. Yeah, there's no context. Like, maybe just for the listener, like that's thinking about buying something and doing a flip, like how long did that take you to acquire that property? How long did it take you to...
property, it took 12 months of saving and learning.
Yep.
So it's a slow start.
Yep.
Real estate's a slow game. There, now that I'm 10 years into it and I've learned some things, if I was to go back knowing what I know now, I'd be able to get started and grow a lot faster, especially it was easier back then. I'm not saying that it's not impossible now. It's definitely possible, but to get started, it is a slow game. So real estate is a long-term game, but it took about 12 months to get into that first one, and then from there, because we brought right, I could have brought another one after 3 months. Back then, the banks had these...
So you renovated that in about 2.5 months, sort of thing, or a month even? Or...
We didn't do a huge amount. We painted a bunch of things, cleaned up the kitchen, fixed some of the leaks in the roof, painted the roof, just pretty much did all the gardens, so presented it well. Yeah. And then back then the banks had... or BNZ had this stand-down period for 3 months where they wouldn't let you buy another property for 3 months.
Yep, I remember.
They don't have that anymore, but they will want to register valuation.
And then now 65% LVR as well.
So 30% deposit, so 70% now for investment properties. So then it was 3 months stand-down, but it took up to 3 months to find another property, secure it under contract, do the DD, and then go and settle the property.
Yeah.
But I mean, for the expectations now, it is slower and harder because there's more legislation, there's more bureaucracy, there's more rules, there's rules on top of rules on top of rules now. So it is slower now, but it's still very much possible.
Yeah, like how are you, I guess, because we're both in the market actively and looking at deals and whatnot, and like how are you finding this market over the last 4 months? Like I was actually very interested to see what you think.
It's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Because there's just, I mean, the market's always exciting because it's always changing, so there's always something new. Maybe I'm a little bit of a fanatic around it, so I just really into it, live and breathe it. But it's kind of exciting because there's so many little different things going on, and there's lots of opportunities on properties at the moment. There's lots of deals to be had at the moment, but then it's also challenging because it's so much harder to finance things right now.
Yeah.
So I think right now going forward is a great time to start. I mean, it's always a great time in any market. It's just sometimes, depending on which stage of the market you're in, you sometimes have to change your strategy to keep moving forward.
Yeah, well, I have a saying I always use, and I've been telling it to my clients in real estate for a long time. It's not about timing the market. It's about time in the market.
Correct.
Like, you got to be in the market and you got to be in it to win it. It's like everyone getting mad at losing the lotto and they haven't even bought a lotto ticket, you know? Like, because they're like, oh, I fucking lost the lotto this week. I was like, well, you weren't even, like, in the game to play. Like,
yeah. That guy didn't deserve 5 million.
Yeah, I deserved it, but
well,
I sat here and did nothing.
Yeah, and that's just the lotto.
Yeah, that's it. I know. Like, and I think a lot of people have that wrong mindset towards property. And New Zealand's an interesting economy. Like, it's you build a business and then you acquire rental properties or investment properties. You know, like and you build your wealth up here. And we're one of the wealthier countries in the world as well. A lot of people don't realize, and they think, oh, you know, it's all the grass is greener overseas.
It's only green where you water it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and you can build yourself up really and get yourself really established here in New Zealand, and then you're not around dickheads overseas. You know, like I love Kiwis.
I find that I do find that with a lot of New Zealanders is they think that things are greener overseas. And I notice a lot of people talk about how shit it is in New Zealand, but then a lot of them haven't really traveled the world and seen how actual shit it is around most of the world.
Yeah.
And when they do travel, they go to the really nice tourist places. You know, they go to well, Aussie's not a great example because it's pretty wealthy, but then they go to Europe and they go to the main centers. They go to London and they go to Paris and they go to Italy and Florence and Rome. Yeah. And they're like, oh, these are really cool, nice places, but those are just tiny little places on the world scale. And if you ventured out to about, I would say New Zealand's probably a lot nicer than 95% of the world. Yeah. So it's pretty good here. People have it really, really good. Yeah. We're so isolated.
We're so blessed. That's probably like a blessing and a curse, us being isolated.
Blessing and a curse.
Yeah. But it is a blessing and a curse. And you have to just chalk it up to that. Like, it's a blessing and a curse. It's going to come with its cons. Yes, we can't get shipments in very easily. Yeah. People, like, we are the last people to get served.
I'm always waiting for building materials to show up.
Yeah. Oh man, like, I'm not looking forward to that. You know, when I ramp my stuff up. You know, like, we got a container when I was here, and we just loaded the container. Yeah, with just to have a stockpile of stuff. You know, because that's 6 years ago too.
Oh yeah,
was
right.
When I did this. You know, so 6 years ago. Yeah. How was COVID for you?
How was COVID?
Yeah, because are we even allowed to say COVID when you post that stuff?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, who knows? The AI seems to be changing now. You see Mark Zuckerberg put up that he's going to take down the community notes now.
Yeah.
Maybe that's because Trump got in. I don't know. Let's not get too political on here. But
he looks a bit scared, doesn't he?
Yeah. He's like, oh, I'm not part of the club anymore, and they're going to come for me unless I get some common sense going. But how was COVID? COVID was, it was. I don't necessarily agree with a lot of what was going on at the time, but I do think it was kind of, I don't know, maybe this is the way I think, but I do think it was kind of helpful for me because, that whole
that was
month,
in your building phase, and then that was cheap money back then, eh?
Oh, the money was cheap. Yeah, well, that was cool for real estate, but actually the actual COVID thing itself and the lockdowns, I kind of just stayed home. Everyone else was getting on the piss, and I was like, sweet, I'm going to read books, and I'm going to like work out at home, had my little home gym set up. I was like, I'm going to get this house sorted, stain all the decks, tidy up the section. Just all sorts of things. And started like really getting clear on what I want to do moving forward, and like setting myself up as like, as soon as I'm out of this lockdown, I'm going to kill it. I'm going to start going hard.
So it was a pivotal moment though.
I guess I was leading into that. I was already developing that kind of mental model leading into it. But I mean, there's good and bad things to everything in life, yin and yang and all that. But no, the COVID, going out of COVID was interesting. Yeah. It was things started going crazy for the building side. Like, we just started going absolutely gangbusters with work. Yeah. But it was quite good because you had to learn how to be really creative because things were becoming a challenge. Yeah. So like, money was flowing easily, but like actually building houses was becoming quite hard.
The sourcing of materials.
Yeah, sourcing of materials, the price going up every 3 days.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody holding their quotes more than 24 hours.
Yeah, that was crazy. I was working at Versatile at the time, selling houses and new builds for them. And man, yeah, it was tough too, because we couldn't even keep our spreadsheet up to date because we had a new thing coming in. So we would have our IT person be sending the new spreadsheet to go and reprice stuff like maybe like every second week.
And you're so busy, like, I don't have time for this.
Yeah. Well, the problem is as well, you got 5 quotes out there, and then they were only out 3 days ago, but then your prices have changed, and then it's like, and then we ended up. There was a lot of disputes on the contracts because of, like in their contract they have, like, well, if there are price increases, if we prove that there's price increases, we would
on the fixed
prove
price
it to you.
contracts,
yeah, on the fixed price, we would show you, and then like unfortunately that's just how it was, and it was a bit of a it was hard to navigate that realm.
Yeah, well, I'd been in business a couple of years at that point, but I was still quite fresh to it, so we didn't have escalation clauses in our fixed price building contracts at the time.
Yep.
So we actually built around 6 or 7 client builds. The in-house projects were sweet because we were just selling them at the end, and the market value was the market value, and they cost what they cost, and the market was moving up. So they were making money. Whatever the cost increase were, it got covered by the fact the market moved up.
Yeah.
But we did about 6 or 7 houses. We did 6 in the subdivision called Oak Ridge, and we signed them up just after the first lockdown, within that couple of months, fixed price building contracts. And by the time we finished them, we were either breaking even or losing money because the cost to build them had gone up 15-20%.
Yeah, I saw a video of yours the other day where you were visiting that site.
Oh, Spec Home.
Yeah, and you were saying how you're
there's no money in it.
Yeah, you were going to be happy to make a couple thousand,
Oh, yeah, that was our lifestyle block. Yeah, we brought a lifestyle block. Great buy, still is a great buy to today, but we brought it just as the market was changing. So what was that, end of 2022 sort of thing? And then all of a sudden, like just after we brought it, the bank's internal policy started changing around people getting finance for buying because it's zoned rural blocks. And all of a sudden, we had this guy under contract, keen as to buy it, had his 35% deposit because it was 65% LVR at the time for lifestyle blocks. And then boom, all of a sudden, the bank's like, no, we need you to have 50% because the market was turning. They were worried, rates were going up.
Oh, wow.
And then we still own it today, 2.5 years later. So that was the second worst property deal we've done.
Yeah.
Still going to make money, but yeah.
Yeah, well, like I think I've always had it like I used to get I don't know if you've heard this one, is oh, you're a property developer, you're rolling in it, or you got this and you're rolling in it, and I was just like,
builders kill it, you make heaps of money.
I was like, realistically, you got to do, like, this is what I would say to them, is like, realistically, I got to do 5 developments for me to be rolling in it, and I'm only done one big one, like, and I'm working on 2, so you're kind of recycling your equity, and you're trying to build up that, I guess, that empire or that portfolio.
And there's a lot of developers who go bankrupt and lose hundreds of thousands of dollars, or they have to cut their losses, or there's some unforeseen cost that creeps up along the way. So it's not all cherries and roses in building and development. And I think the last few years have been very evident of that. We're seeing a lot of people fall over, and I know lots of people who are on payment plans with IRDs. I'm seeing lots of tradies not paying their bills at the moment. Lots of people have now lost a lot of trust in companies, so they're putting one-day payment terms on their invoices because they're worried they're not going to get paid. And
I got that the other week with my engineer for building consent that I just went in, and I was just like, if I would have known that, I would have gone through Titus or something, mate. Like, like they allow me, like, they know I'll pay them, I was like, well, I don't want to use all my cash going into Christmas, but he was adamant, like he's been stung by someone else, and I kind of, like, that mindset, I was just like, so I'm paying for someone else's mistake. It's like, like, I've paid you your deposit. I've done your thing. It's like, well, I haven't got building consent out of you, and you want me to pay it all up in front. It's just like, it's just it's an interesting, like, I think we are sort of just
on the cusp,
and that's what I always say. For me, like like you were saying before, it's exciting. Like, it's exciting for me. Like,
things are always changing.
Yeah, well, it's exciting as well. With the aspect is, like, I am gonna be, I guess, favorable, like, when I can go to tradies and it's like, well, I've got work, like, everyone's sort of, before they weren't even looking at you, if you went up to trades, they had jobs lined up left, right and center, and then
completely different dynamic right now.
And what I like to say is I get to pick the best, best apple of the bunch, sort of thing, and so I can get the best product for myself,
Yep.
So I contribute a lot of my success to actually keeping my health in check and like, well, after not being so healthy, and it's been paying dividends for me, like once I've rebounded off of that. And you mentioned that you set up at home and you set up your home gym and you kept yourself healthy during that COVID period. Like, what's that been like for you? Like, keeping and maintaining a healthy lifestyle, at least with working so hard.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm definitely not a perfect person, as in terms of like at my wedding, in somebody's speech, they were like, he's the typical work really hard, party really hard kind of guy. But, I generally keep myself pretty healthy and I generally eat pretty well. I generally try to work out, 3, 4, sometimes 5 times a week. I had a sauna this morning at 5:30, went to the gym. Nice. But like I still will drink and that sort of thing. So.
Oh, but like you're more than you're allowed to do that.
Oh,
but
yeah,
like
absolutely.
At least you're doing you're lapping people on the couch, if you know what I mean. Like it seems to be like you have that some sort of thing there that you have. Is there like you got to have a minimum? You're like, got to just have a bare minimum, look after yourself, and then play.
Yeah. And then I can give myself permission to get a little silly every now and then.
Yeah, well, why not? We're still young, we're only 32, so we are young. And it's funny, when I was younger, I used to be like, oh man, 30, that was old. But like now that I'm here, I'm like, man, not much has really changed up here, like mentally. Like I'm like still a little bit, but like I'd still like to have a good time, and it's, you don't understand like why people think the older ages are so serious, Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, because you still kind of feel like you're 20 years old sometimes, but don't know, maybe it'll change.
And then you come around 20-year-olds, and then you're like, okay, yes, I am 32.
Yeah.
For the listeners out there, buying a house with you, what would that process look like for
the building company?
Yeah, for the building company.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a few different ways that we sell new builds. So we have done a lot of client builds in the past.
Yeah.
We generally, the way that we headed is we headed to more in-house projects, and there's a number of reasons about that. We can get into it, but the way it kind of works is, let's say there's somebody who has a section themselves and they want to approach us to build a new house. So first of all, they're obviously going to make contact with us. Generally from there, we'll have a look at the section and look at what can be done, and we'll typically draw them up some draft plans based on what they've told us. And that way we can just give them an indicative figure of, this is what you'll roughly be expecting looking at this house. So that might be somebody as a section comes to us. Otherwise, what we're leaning more towards now is we're doing our own subdivisions, and we do a few spec homes, and we're starting to do a few more flips and that sort of thing too. But with spec homes, we generally like to build the houses and start advertising them towards the end of the build. We used to advertise early on, but what we generally find is it's just a lot more streamlined, easier to build the house, have it presented. It's easy for people to visualize. Most people can't visualize what the thing is going to look like.
I had that issue selling these.
Yeah.
Like it was a part of my lending that we had to
pre-sales.
We had to do pre-sales. And that's how I became good at selling off of a piece of paper, though. Like, it's, you want to test someone's sales skills, like being a real estate agent, you can go and show houses. Try selling this piece of paper.
Yeah.
and a piece
it's
of dirt.
only $1 million.
Yeah, it's just $1 million. You just got to imagine it right there in front of you. It's like, it's not easy. You need to sort of be able to paint a picture for people.
Correct. Yep. And you need to be able to put them, all of their concerns and worries at ease. You need to be able to explain everything fluently. You need to talk about, what happens if this goes wrong, or if this happens. You need to have all the answers as best you can.
Yeah, and even then you're probably wrong.
Yeah.
Well, with delays, it's just like
you can't control everything. Yeah.
I think that's what a lot of the purchasers don't realize as well, that you literally can't control everything.
A lot of things are out of your control.
Yeah, a lot of it is, and you're just doing your best to try and be the middleman. Be like, oh well, I'm in between this because that went wrong.
Yeah, you're trying to facilitate things, but anything that deals with people, things are going to go wrong. I mean, if you took people out of the equation, everything would be streamlined and simple and easy. But we are people, and people deal with people because people need things. So there's always going to be complications.
Yeah. So you're going to be mainly doing like your in-house sort of stuff.
Yep, that's where we're heading. We're still going to do client work. We're just not going to actively go out and try to pursue client work and grow a large building company. And the reason is generally, like, we've had a lot of great clients and a lot of really great builds have gone really, really well, but we where we want to move forward is we want to become more efficient, where it's stress-free. It's a lot, not easier, but there's less complications and headaches. We want to build the own projects ourselves. And the other side of that is they generally work out a lot better. They generally make more money.
Yeah, well, that's what I've been staying away from. Like, because I kind of thought, oh, well, do I start my building company? Do I get my tradies in place? Do I? And then I feel like they're all going to be like looking to me to facilitate them with the work versus only making not as much or being a bit patient and then waiting for that sweeter deal and then doing my own. Like, that's kind of like you're servicing yourself, right? Like, and then that way, and then all the other stuff is the bonus. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, that's how most of the big group housing companies go. People think they build for clients, but really they're doing their own big developments. They're building the houses, they're selling them turnkey. What you see on that piece of paper is what you get. If you want to change something, it's a massive fee. You know, it's $2,000 to even have a conversation to talk about making a change.
Yeah.
So they're really just building things to sell at the end, and that's their business model. And the reason they've gravitated that way is, well, one, it makes a lot more money, and two, it's a lot more streamlined and efficient for them.
Yeah.
Not saying that you can't do really well and have great success doing custom builds with clients right from the get-go, but that's not where we want to head anyway. From what our experience is, it's a lot better for us to just build houses and sell them.
Oh, awesome. No, that's good.
It takes a lot of time dealing with people.
Yeah, whereas you get to go in and you get to pick all of your stuff that you know is.
Well, we just know it's going to work and it's going to suit the house, be sweet.
Yeah,
won't be any hiccups.
Yeah, I gave all my clients only 3 options for carpet because I was like, this is all you need, and then because I've seen so many ugly choices for carpet in all the houses I went through in real estate and stuff. You know, like people don't realize, like, you know, you can pick that, but that next person that's coming along is not necessarily going to like that, or especially for like bench tops and cupboard colours as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Finance has always been a huge sticking point for me when it's come to doing my developments and some of my spec builds as well. How have you found that? Like, and elaborate.
It's pretty challenging in the last 18 months.
Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, we have a particular development at the moment that we would like to build some houses on. And when we approached the bank, they basically said, yeah, look, equity's fine, servicing's there, but we don't have an appetite, so we're not going to fund you.
Yeah.
So that gives you an indication of where the market has been or it is at the moment. So even though you might meet all the requirements, there's a lot of concern around the construction industry at the moment. Some of the lenders don't necessarily want to be involved in it. If we had pre-sales all day, they'd fund it. But so yeah, the market changes, it goes through different stages, and finance follows along the way.
Yeah, and you talked about pre-sales. Like, I guess for the listeners out there, with the pre-sales, I think the reason why you're not wanting to go into it is because you tend to be leaving a lot more of the piece of the pie. Yeah, well, on the table. That
was absolutely the case when we were in a rising market.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much of the case now, although we are still, you know, if we sign a turnkey guaranteed price, there are still price increases coming through now. We had some in December. We've got some more in January. They're not like they used to be, obviously. But so yeah, that definitely is a factor. But for us, it's just a lot simpler. There's less administration times, which means there's less cost in actually building the projects too. They generally seem to sell really well at the end once they're finished.
Yeah, well, like you're saying, like they get to see it in front of them, right? Like I always found it a lot easier selling a house that was right in front of me versus on the paper.
Yep.
Not that it's impossible, but like, so do you find it hard getting lending to even do those projects to finish as well? Like, if you are not going to sell them at the end, like how are you doing those ones? Like,
well, at the moment, basically where we're at is we have to sell something existing. So we, instead of doing, let's say we're doing a 1 into 8 at the moment, and let's say after COVID 2021, we would have been able to get the finance and just build the whole lot. But now the bank's going, well, there's an existing house in there, so once you sell that, we'll finance you to build one.
Yeah.
And then when you build that, sell it, we'll finance you to build the next one. And when you build that and sell that, we'll finance you to build the next one.
That almost quadruples your time turnover.
Yeah, and it's not as it's not as profitable either because we're holding that high interest cost the whole way through on the development block. So at the moment, in that particular entity, there's a spec home in the existing house which will get the title issued probably sometime in the next 3 to 4 weeks, and then we'll be able to sell those two and build two. But we're also probably going to sell a couple of the sites there because that,
just to free up the capital to
exactly,
go and build
pay
those
down the
other
debt,
three.
clear some of that high interest debt so that we can continue moving forward and constructing more houses.
Yeah, like you say, what was it? It's not all cherries and
It's not all cherries and smiles.
cherries and smiles, eh? Like honestly, it is like that, and a lot of people, I would say, it's not for the faint-hearted. If you're balding, I wouldn't recommend getting into it if you're worried about losing your hair because.
Oh yeah, and at the same time, you got all these people who are relying on you. You got all your staff, you got subbies, and all their livelihoods are surrounded from you following through and being able to do what you've planned to do.
Yeah. Well, builders don't get enough credit, I don't think.
Absolutely not. Nowhere near enough credit.
I think the electricians and the plumbers and stuff, they get glorified a bit. But
yeah, and the builder being the main contractor a lot of the time, they're making the least amount of money out of any of them, and they're taking on a huge amount of risk, massive amount of risk. They're taking on all this risk, liability, stress, potential for things to go wrong. They've got to warrant that thing for 10 years, whereas, the other guys show up, do their work. They still take on liability, but they're only taking liability for their part, whereas as the builder or the PCBU, the main contractor, I'm taking liability for everyone and everything for 10 years.
If you threw the wrong person in, that's on you.
Correct.
And then if that stuffs the whole building.
And you can't be everywhere at once. You can't have your eye on everything, so it's part of the game.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yep.
You seem highly driven. What is the 10-year vision for?
10-year vision.
Yeah.
Well,
that's how I think.
10-year vision.
Well, you've probably got a 5-year then. What's your 5-year?
Yeah, well, I've definitely got a 3-year vision. Look, the 10-year vision is the long-term vision, which is very simple. The 10-year vision is to be in a position where people say, oh, you care about money, but I don't care about money. I care about freedom because that's what money buys you. So in 10 years' time, I want to be at the position where I don't have to work or take answers from anybody, essentially. I want to be in the position where you can look after the people around you, give back to people, whether it be your friends or family, anybody in need, and to be able to decide that I don't have to work so much. Not that I don't think I've got it in me. I think I'll still be doing something, but...
Yeah, it's weird. I think exactly like that, and how you say, I want to be free, but I couldn't see myself not working or grinding on something, but it's having that choice to go, you know what, I don't have to listen to anyone. I can tell you to fuck off if you're being a dickhead, and I can still look after my family. If something terrible goes wrong, like that's a huge one for me. Like, 'cause like if something goes wrong, you don't even blink at it, and you don't even think, how am I going to pay for that? That's where I want to be getting to, and then don't have to worry about it,
Yep.
And it's just like, sweet.
That's the one.
Yep, not even a blink,
Absolutely. So that's the 10-year vision.
Yep.
Or 5-year.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah,
Shoot
5
for
years.
the stars, land on the moon.
Yeah, that's it, man. 5 years, it's doable, eh? That's where I think I'm going to be. Like, it's weird. I think in my head, the level of success I'm going to be, and I don't even know how I'm going to get there. I'm just figuring it out as I go, but I'm just going to keep working my ass off till I get there, and
well, that's exactly what the process is. The process is knowing where you want to get to, knowing what you want to achieve, knowing what you have to have, and the process is just figuring it out along the way to get to that point.
Yeah. I start like building backwards, and then I start building forwards, and then I'm trying to figure out how am I going to get there.
Yeah. Reverse engineer it.
Yeah. Tell the listeners about the Property Punters.
Property Punters, so my property wealth playbook.
Yeah.
So we've developed a property community, so it's a private property community. So essentially, when I started buying rental properties, and for the few years after that, it was really hard to meet and get to know and have people that shared that similar interest. And it's not so much today because I've grown quite a big network, but I wanted to create basically an ecosystem where I could help a lot of people. Like, I keep getting hit up to mentor people quite often, and I was always quite busy, and building business hasn't been as busy in the last year. So I was like, I'm going to finally put this thing together that I wanted to create for a while, and create an ecosystem for driven, like-minded people who are interested in property, where they could come together, do JV opportunities together, learn about real estate, and help each other build, get ahead in life. And in the process, I know a lot of people hate on property investors, but I believe that by doing what we're doing, we're actually making the world a better place in the process. We're buying terrible houses that, say, a first-home buyer couldn't even get finance on, and we're turning them back into family homes that are going to be able to be lived in and be healthy for the next 50 years.
Too true, mate.
So
yeah,
that all depends how you look at it. But so we've built a private community, which is really good, and the feedback has been amazing so far. I haven't had one bit of negative feedback from anyone who's been in there, which is cool, because it's a new venture for me. It's not a say industry or space facilitating a group that I've been a part of. Like I haven't done this type of role before, so it's all new for me, creating a basically an online product and doing mentoring and coaching and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But so far it's been awesome, It's been really cool.
Oh, awesome. That's inspiring, for me, because that's something that I was thinking of doing as well, just with my experience. And
awesome.
It sees what I see what you're doing there, man. Maybe I'll just leave it to you because you're doing a good job, bro.
Oh, jump on board. We'll see you in there.
Yeah. No, well, like you're doing a great job, bro. And honestly, like you gotta be able to explain it to people that it's not threatening or scary. And I think you're doing quite well in that aspect because I guess like we talked about it earlier before, how like everyone just follows the news and then they're just that fear mongering.
Yeah. Don't watch the news.
Yeah.
Make you depressed.
Yeah. No, well, like I hope that's going. So how would they find you then?
Well, basically, like we're really only using Instagram at the moment, but going forward, we are going to start using other platforms. So we really just honed down on one platform to begin with. Mm-hmm. To be honest, I barely even knew how to use Instagram 6 months ago. I got it in 2019 when I went to Europe, took some photos, put them on there, never went on there again. Then had this idea, doing what I do. I messaged a whole bunch of people and said, I've got this idea, this is what I'm going to do. I need somebody who knows what they're doing to help me set this up. Yep. And one guy said, you should talk to this guy, Kale. He's the wizard of all things magical on the internet.
Oh, yeah.
And so I caught up with him and he was pretty excited about the idea. So we got together and started doing it. And he was like, let's choose Instagram as a place to start promoting or start building an audience so that they can begin to know you, begin to like you, and to begin to trust that you are who you say you are and you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And that will be the first part of building that network for people to eventually start to work with you.
Yeah. No, awesome. Like, because I guess that's like a few steps ahead of what I'm thinking for myself as well. Like, how do I help others? How do I guess make a difference in their life? And it's really hard to, well, for me, I'm just trying to navigate that at the moment, and like you're saying, it's probably good that you built it on that back end, how like people have that trust for you already, and just showing what you're doing. So I'm probably in that middle of that, but like I'm trying to show everyone right now and trying to, I guess.
That's a process.
Yeah.
And you feel like a bit of an idiot when you start, but it's well worth it.
We're all idiots,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's just some of us are willing to be more of an idiot in front of other people in the pursuit of something meaningful to us.
Yeah. That's so true, though, right? Yeah.
But no, it's been good. It's like I always used to look at people on social media doing whatever they're doing, and I'd be like, look at that loser. But now I'm on the other end of it. I'm like, I kind of understand why they're doing that and why. Yeah.
You start understanding how the world works a bit more. So like what my main thing was thinking, if I want to be in business in 10 years, I need to start now. Like that's my thinking. And I think every person that's not really getting on board or not at least having some sort of, I guess, social media presence or personal brand presence, I think you're going to be left behind. And like, because we're going to be,
that's the way
we're going to be verifying everyone from their personal brand. Then we're going to go to their business.
Correct. It used to all be about the business advertising, and now it's all about the personal brand. But it's so effective. It's like I said to you before. It's like how many desks a day are you slapping? How many people are you getting in front of and meeting? Like if you were to go and physically meet people day by day, shake their hand and meet them, you'd meet say 20, 30 people a day. But when you go and create something meaningful that you know about, and you go and post it, and 5,000 people see that, that's 5,000 people that you've met and shaken their hand that have gotten to know you a little bit that day. So it's extremely powerful, and you're right, people that don't get on it, they are going to end up being left behind, and it is going to affect their business and what they're doing themselves.
Yeah, well, that's 3,970 eyeballs that they didn't get to see, right? Like, they were out there, and it's weird because I think a lot of people probably have that real hardworking person that they can think of like right now that they work their ass off, but they're not working their ass off on the right things.
Correct.
And then they can work as hard as they want. You've only got a certain amount of hours, and you can only knock on a certain amount of doors and shake those hands and put hands on the desk. Like it's that. That's where I see that problem, and I was like, I need to solve that. I'm going all in on it this year. Yeah.
That's it. You can row as hard as you want, but if you're in the wrong boat, going in the wrong direction, you're not going to get anywhere.
Very true. Oh, do you have anything else to add at the end of that? Like, I think that was a pretty good pod.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah,
sweet.
I'd love to have you back on, and then we can have a catch-up sort of...
see how things are progressing in 6-12 months.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, thanks for listening, guys. If you want to find Michael, just go on and find him on Instagram.
Yep, Will Stiggerty.
Yeah, Will Stiggerty.
That's the name.
Good man, the Wilsonator.
That's the one.
All right, cheers for listening, guys.
Awesome, cheers.